This is going to be a quick lightning round of conversation here on data centers. Pablo, I'm hoping that you can provide a little context to kick us off, just on framing the discussion. Let's get away from catchphrase and say, what does the discussion with the hyperscalers look like? How is it evolving? What's really the landscape here?
Well, first of all, Landon, good to see you and great to be here. So thank you. It's an honor and a privilege for us to be here with all of you today. It's a very interesting dynamic landscape with the hyperscalers, especially over the last 12 months. And I was just thinking of how to, talk about the context. And there's this realization, what we've experienced as we've been talking to them, about going from energy purchasers to real partners. And the interesting thing is that if we look at the Vision 2030 from the kingdom, this realization that power at scale is complex. It involves a lot of different technologies coming together. It needs a thoughtful planning in order to execute. That's really been the realization of the discussions that we've been having for the last 12 months of forming strategies and partnerships that are going to be necessary to really achieve the goals of these hyperscalers to acquire power at speed, at scale, and with the reliability it needs. The other thing that we've seen is a more direct approach to go, again, from being a purchaser, that's what they've been doing traditionally, to being more advocates of regulatory policy, pushing for grid modernization, for more power generation, and certainly on the regulatory side. So it's been a very interesting, quick, dynamic 12 months, but I think it's something that here in the kingdom is well understood.
Well, let's talk about the kingdom, because it is a global challenge. It's a global problem set that's really intriguing. But Marco, from Aqua Power's perspective, help me distinguish the Saudi market from others that we're talking about globally.
One of the biggest advantages of Saudi is the big decarbonization program that is going through that we heard about before. So with the goal to take out 278 million tons per year of CO2, which is massive. It's like 70% of the consumption of a G7 country. This is going to be 50% renewable and 50% combined cycle. We are already well advanced, and Aqua Power alone has 4 gigawatt in operation already, almost 15 gigawatt, 16 gigawatt under construction. We expect to get another 12 to 15 in the next few months. That means we're going to have 30 gigawatt under construction. That gives you the scale to both do it very competitively, very fast, very efficiently, and to provide an ecosystem that can then feed whatever industry we want to cite in the country. But I think that the other big, very pragmatic but very green approach of the country is really this mix of renewables and combined cycles, because I think that renewables are good, of course, but you need to look at how you integrate them. And battery storage can only go a certain way. So if you want to have a comprehensive solution, you need to have the mix, which is what Saudi Arabia is doing.
If we want to expand on this, Alphaner is engaged in thinking through where it can make investments in data centers, Amar. What are you seeing as the underappreciated challenges and opportunities? I think it can exhibit both when we're talking about data centers, both from grid demand, but also the ambition of AI, maybe to match the scale of transformation here in the kingdom we're seeing elsewhere.
Thank you. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين. First, let me thank the organizer, GE Vernova, to give us this chance and for me to represent Al-Fanar in front of all of you with this, colleagues in this panel and panelists. Second, back to your questions, I believe the challenges in the ecosystem for the data center is the availability of proper land and the shortage of the land which is meet the requirement of hyperscalers data centers. And when we said the requirement mainly 3. Reliable power supply. The second one, connectivity, when we're talking about telecommunication. The third, the ability for expansions. That's the 3 main factors, I believe, to select the land for the data centers and hyperscalers. Yes, 2 weeks ago in the LEAP, we as Al-Fanar announced that we will have a big investment around 1.4 billion US dollars to build 88 megawatt in 4 data centers, 2 in Riyadh and 2 in Dammam, inshallah ta'ala. And these challenges about the availability of the lands, we can address from different angles. When we're talking about the connectivity, today we heard from Mr. Khalid Al-Ghamdi, the acting CEO of SEC, how they are moving toward, exporting and to be hub of the power. So I believe from our experience as Al-Fanar, from our working with SEC, we can, with a collaboration with SEC, providing that proper power supply. Here when we're talking about supply in data centers, more critical than others, as a data center requires that power supply 24/7. And the connectivity of the telecommunication last year, Saudi Arabia became in the ranking 2 among G20 in the connectivity. The third, the ability of land for expansions. So we can collaborate all our efforts as a EPC, as a market player in the energy, as a EPC or as a manufacturer, as we are manufacturing all electrical component of data center. And recently we add also the manufacturing of servers, partnering with HPE. Last October we celebrated the exporting first servers manufactured in Saudi Arabia to the region with HPE. Third, development. We are a global developer. We have our development in sustainability, green hydrogen in Latin America, sustainable aviation fuel in UK, wind farms in Spain, wind farms in India, owning the technology in wind manufacturers, either R&D in Germany or wind farms in India, plus in Egypt, solar farms. And today here in Saudis, we have also infrastructure development in NEOM, 5 construction villages which contains 50,000 beds. So we can collaborate and leverage our expertise to not only providing the land, to managing and develop the land with government initiatives here in Saudi. That's how we are tackle that challenge to be opportunity for Al-Fanar.
I want to key in on one aspect of the reliability factor. Whether a government concern or a regulator concern, there is a perspective, and you highlighted this, the importance of grid reliability when we're talking about data centers and the need for 24/7 energy, which interestingly enough is a space that Saudi Arabia is very well equipped with, especially when you think about the industrial base and some of the Eastern Province facilities that you have that require the same commitment for reliability. So, Rajid, if I can turn to you just to build this out a little bit more, what does grid reliability mean to the kingdom, but I mean to this challenge of being a leader in data centers more globally and in general look like for you?
Thank you. Maybe before I respond on the question of reliability, just a very quick introduction to DataVolt because it's a relatively young company compared to the big boys here. DataVolt is a year and a half company, purely from the Kingdom of Saudi, which is focused on digital infrastructure, primarily data centers at this point of time. The whole element of building the data centers of the future, which is what we are focused on, is around the 3 key points of disruption, which is scale, sustainability, and innovation. About 10 days back, during the LEAP, we have announced a 1.5 gigawatt project in partnership with NEOM Oxagon. This is the world's largest data center. In the first phase, it is going to be 300 megawatts. It's a $20 billion single investment, of which this year we are committing $5 billion of capital towards the first phase of that. It's also a very interesting data center because it's the first net zero data center which works at an efficiency of a PUE of 1.2, which is equivalent to building the same data center as if it was being located in Finland or Sweden, one of those Northern Europe countries which have the highest efficiencies for data centers. And we are building it right in the middle of the desert with the same level of efficiency. In terms of reliability, the data center that we are building in NEOM is 100% going to cater to AI workloads. The whole idea is to use it primarily for inference loads and a bit of training loads as well. And from a sustainability perspective, it's a facility that is going to be 24/7, 365 days built on renewables, a composite mix of solar, wind, hydrogen, and storage. In fact, it's the first time that a data center of this scale in the world is going to be using green hydrogen to power high density, high compute workloads, AI workloads in the world. I think that's it.
No, I think this really bridges well into the conversation and where I want to take it, which is the solution sets for providing power reliably to the grid and data centers. And, Pablo, if I could turn back to you, and I hope I'm not preempting your answer here, but just thinking about the recent announcement that GE Vernova had with Engine 1 and Chevron in terms of solution sets for this problem. For this challenge. I don't want to call it a problem. It's really an opportunity. Right. And I'd be interested to hear your thoughts in terms of why developers are turning to behind-the-meter solutions and what that looks like in terms of GE Vernova's set of options and how to meet the demand.
Well, I think, first of all, behind-the-meter projects, we've been doing those for a long time. The complexity comes in the scale. And so, Rajit, congratulations, by the way, 1.5 gigawatts. Would love to help you in that project, and I think we can. When we think about why developers are turning to that, it's frankly the need for more power and the need for more power at a speed and scale that the grid traditionally in many countries, certainly with Chevron and Engine 1, that's specific to the United States, that the grid is not able to provide in the time periods that some of these customers are looking for. The uniqueness of the challenge is really about the scale, because you're looking at power loads that are very specific to inference and AI compute. Those are very dynamic loads. The reliability requirements of these customers that we've been talking about are extremely high. You have a carbon footprint that is of great concern and in terms of long-term strategic planning for the off-takers. And you have a very high concentration of power and data computing in one location. So the land, the availability of things like gas as part of an all-of-the-above solution and water are all making this quite complex. Now for GE Vernova, it's an extremely exciting opportunity because it really touches on every single part of our portfolio, whether it be power generation, the electrification systems, the batteries that are involved that form part of that, the integration of renewables, and the equipment management software that becomes extremely important as you try and manage these dynamic loads. The last thing I'll say, it's an incredible opportunity for these customers to think about innovation within the data centers in terms of how they manage energy efficiency. And they'll be able to look at that in a captive way as they get power from behind the meter. So very, very exciting opportunities.
This is great. Marco, to expand on the conversation on reliability and solution sets, obviously as a global clean energy provider, there's two components to this question. One is, of course, the supply side. The other side is just the broader energy infrastructure that needs to be put in place to make this a reality. I don't think that when you get outside the kingdom, everybody has a sense of the scale, both in terms of what's attempting to be achieved here in such a short time frame. But the ambition in places like NEOM that Rajit has talked about in the clean energy space as well. What does the infrastructure story look like for this, and how is Aqua Power bringing solution sets to reliable power that is clearly needed?
Yeah, I think that Rajit made a great point before about the innovation and the fact that here you will be able to use at NEOM, in the NEOM area, hydrogen, green hydrogen also for these uses. And I think if I can make just a little diversion, is every market will be different and every market will have its own solution. I remember 10 years ago, 15 years ago in Europe, when I was still in Europe, we were discussing not so much about how are we going to feed with renewable energy Europe, but what are we going to do with all the excess energy that we're going to have if we want to meet the targets of decarbonization. There will be so much additional capacity. What do we do with it? And certainly data centers are a great use of that. I always thought at that time, we were looking at basically installing blockchain machines, mining machines, basically to capture the excess power. And then soon you realize that you need to base load them because otherwise you don't recover the investment on the infrastructure on the data. So you see how the data and the energy are so interconnected. And that's why starting projects where you're bringing together at the same time the development of the data centers and the development of the energy infrastructure is key to achieve the level of efficiency and maximization of the utilization of both. So you cannot really develop, or actually you can in very advanced markets like Europe or the US, where basically there was a point in time where you were saying demand is going down, what are we going to do with the existing infrastructure? But there is today such a potential in countries like Saudi Arabia where we are developing renewables at basically effectively a fraction of the cost that you have in the US or in Europe. It's as low as 1/6 of the cost if you look at prevailing costs. So if we can develop these two infrastructure at the same time, like the potential is there in the NEOM area for such large giga scale, then I think that these will make it by far the best in terms of reliability, efficiency for both.
If I can just very quickly add to what Marco was saying, the whole technical solution in the context of the NEOM Oxagon data center project that DataVolt is doing, it has been all engineered on the back of battery management systems and synchronous condensers, primarily because the AI workload leads to a lot of spikes. And traditionally, what happens in the data center industry is you either rely on the grid to be your spike management, load management, and the grid, of course, cannot respond to the speed at which the spikes are happening. And in most cases, it affects the reliability of the systems. In this particular case, what we are doing is we are using behind the meters technical solution. Rather than rely on the grid, we create that solution on the site through the use of these battery systems and synchronous condensers in order to be able to respond in a fraction of milliseconds, not even seconds, fraction of milliseconds to take all of the workload spikes and still meet the 99.99999, the 5 nines as it is called in our industry, reliability, which is at the heart of data center availabilities and reliability.
All right,
It's a fascinating.
I'm giving you tougher questions from now on because this is a really sophisticated answer, and I appreciate the fullness of what I'm seeing from Pablo, Marco, and Rajit. But Amer, if I could have you put your investor and developer hat on and look at these solution sets and distinguish, from where Alphaner maybe has been investing in terms of just bringing supply and new power plants and the development for the grid versus targeting end use in data centers. Is it changing the investment model? Is it changing the script, or are you just because of the ambition, the scale of what's happening in the kingdom, continuing to push forward the way you would have prior to this new, new issue kind of introducing itself into the mix?
Okay, good questions. First of all, what's behind our entrance in such investment in data center? I believe that in any data center, it's required the innovations, required the digitalizations, required the R&D. And we are in Al-Fanar, we are believing in localizations and innovations and the digitalization. So we are investing in all of these things. So when you go to data center, as I highlighted in the earlier answer, today we are coming with the background of one of the largest EPC, and the data center, clearly, to build the data center, we are there. But also, with that component, what we are providing, which is, again, friendly to the environment, recently we launched the Smart RMU free SF6 gas, and that innovation and R&D, which is, we are investing heavily and a lot in our R&D offices in Riyadh with the Saudi youth. It's producing such technologies as a first manufacturing in the Middle East. So that allowing us to build the data centers with the highest technologies, with up-to-date, with that innovations, and with a collaborative, all that experience together.
So it sounds like this is complementary to the existing business model as opposed to a whole new concept. Is it fair assessment?
Yes, you are right, but also toward the innovations, toward the, build that experience and build that data center up to the edge and up to the latest specification with that innovations and AI technologies.
If I could turn a page here, and Rashid, I'm going to come to you with a tougher question now because the last answer was so good. I want to talk about investment and the perception. We saw it in the beginning of the year with DeepSeek that there's this really hyper interest moment in the context of data centers and AI. Is there a concern that the investment is outpacing the actual in need, or how do you measure this as you're making new investments into the data center space to be able to balance what will really be maturity and load growth moving forward?
So look, I think my response would be that these are fundamentally two different things. Okay, what is happening in the AI stack on the training part and the inferencing part, which is completely different from the data center part. And why is that? Because data centers are the bottom of the barrel in the entire AI stack. They are the critical infrastructure on which you have the engineering, the applications, and everything else developed. Think of it like, you could build the best car in the world, the car factories in the world, but if you don't build the roads on which these cars are going to ply, you can keep debating about how sophisticated is my next generation auto vehicle, but these vehicles are never going to leave the factory. They will either be exported to a country which has roads, but it will never be used domestically. So you need to build the roads out there. And today, the data centers, which is the critical infrastructure, bottom of the barrel, on which all of this workload needs to be computed, is very short. And that's what we need today. And I don't see the debate on DeepSeeks and so on and so forth affecting in any manner the need for the growth of the data centers. But what is clear in terms of how this AI stack is evolving in the world today is we have come to a point of time where the next focus in terms of survival of the fittest in this industry is all going to transition towards the lowest cost of compute. It is all about bringing efficiency into the world of compute, and that's what is the name of the game. and that's how the survival of the fittest is going to take place in the next couple of years. And energy is at the heart of all of it. Why it is at the heart of all of it is because if you do a total cost of ownership, if you do a total life cycle analysis of a data center in terms of the capex and the energy costs, the cooling systems, and so on and so forth, what the world missed out in the last 2 decades is the fact that energy is between 50 to 60%, depending upon the density of the racks, depending upon the compute power that you want to put at play. It's anywhere between 50 to 60% of the total life cycle cost of that data center in the next 15, 20, or 25, 30 years assessment. Therefore, we have to now focus on energy as one of the most critical components which is going to bring down that cost of compute in this race of the survival of the fittest.
Well, when we put it in those terms, Marco, give me your thoughts. It sounds like AI and the data center race and what the kingdom is setting off to do is actually directly a part of Vision 2030 then, even if that wasn't, it was a nascent concept at the time of 2030's original launch.
So I think if I can bring these two questions together about whether there's a hype about data centers and AI, I think that there is a hype if we look at the learning, but we are severely underestimating the utilization. If you look at recent history, the big spike in growth in demand from data centers has been videos. So the fact that we now have video on demand, Netflix and all that. Imagine with AI, if you can experience a walk, a hike in Yosemite with a friend who's living far away, which feels real time for both, or a disabled friend, which requires AI to implement that. Or if you can put a video where you play football with Ronaldo, and you're on the same team, these uses will be 10, 100 times more than the learning that is required to do that. So I really think that right now we're seeing only the first part, and it looks big and maybe overhyped, but it will be much higher in the future. And I think that Saudi Arabia with this strategy is really at the center of that.
Well, gentlemen, as we come to a close here, I want to go to Amr and Pablo one more time, just about what we did not cover in this conversation that you think we should keep an eye on, and what's keeping you really optimistic and excited about the space moving forward.
Okay, I believe what's keep me exciting and which shall, inspire all of us that the vision of Saudi to be world's topest exporter of the data. And that's clear from the speech of His Excellency Mohammed Al-Jad'an, Minister of Finance, last January in Davos, when he said, world knows Saudis as an exporter of energy, but soon they will know Saudis as exporter of data. I believe that will let us to think about data center, but not only as a building, as a investing in innovation, investing in Saudi talent youth, investing in digitalization and collaborations, where we are here collaborating all together. So we should, all of us, think how we can, all of us, achieve that target, shaping the future together, inshallah ta'ala.
Pablo?
I think we all understand the impact of the technology that we have in front of us, and we're probably in the very early days of the transformation that we're going to see in industries like healthcare and energy and education. The opportunity to diversify economies, to bring it home, Vision 2030, the kingdom's view that started in the 2016, maybe earlier than that vision, to diversify the economy of the kingdom from being a petroleum-focused economy to a highly diversified one. If you think of what data centers, computing power, and artificial intelligence can do for the kingdom, there's a recent report from Tortoise Intelligence, a UK-based firm, that publishes a global AI index that looks at 83 countries. In 2024, the kingdom moved from 17 positions to be the 14th most important country in AI development. number one in governmental strategy, and number one in the Arab world. And if you think of, and that's just 1 year. I fully expect, given the investments that we're looking at here, that this is going to continue to be the case. In fact, in the LEAP Technology Conference earlier this year, $15 billion of infrastructure commitments to the kingdom. Think of what that's going to do in terms of innovation in the sciences and how it will diversify the economy, and what that's going to do globally for innovation and efficiency. It's an exciting time, and this is a very important part of the energy supercycle that we were talking about earlier this morning.
Well, I appreciate you all helping us cut through the hype and recognize that data centers and the growth, the energy demand growth we're going to see from this is real. I certainly think that, Pablo, you make a great point that builds on Marco's earlier statement about the uniqueness of the kingdom and the regulatory and policy frameworks that are being put out here to make this really a vibrant space moving forward as well. Thank you so much for the time, and I ask the audience just to thank the panelists alongside me as we wrap this panel up.